the first time Emily Carter walked into the towering glass headquarters of the Kingsley Group. She wasn't searching for love. She was searching for a paycheck. Rain soaked her cheap sneakers as she stood beneath the enormous revolving doors, clutching a folder that contained everything she owned professionally. 3 recommendation letters, a nearly perfect college transcript, and a resume so thin it almost embarrassed her. Around her, luxury cars lined the entrance. Executives wearing designer suits hurried inside. Without noticing the college girl standing in the rain, trying to wipe water stains off her only blazer. Emily was 20 years old. She worked nights at a coffee shop. She attended college during the day. She shared a tiny apartment with 2 roommates because it was the only rent she could afford after losing both parents years earlier. Every dollar mattered. Today was her final interview for a scholarship internship. If she failed, she would probably have to leave college. Taking a deep breath, she whispered to herself, "You've survived worse." She stepped inside. The marble lobby looked more like a luxury hotel than an office. Crystal chandeliers sparkled overhead. Employees walked with purpose. Emily suddenly felt invisible. At the reception desk, a woman smiled politely. "Name? Emily Carter." The receptionist typed for a second before frowning. "I'm sorry, your interview was moved up." Emily's heart skipped. "What?" "It started 10 minutes ago." Her face turned pale. "No, I received an email saying 11. The receptionist checked again. "It was changed this morning." Emily reached for her phone. Nothing. The cracked screen had died during the bus ride. She couldn't even prove she never received the message. "I'm sorry," the receptionist said softly. The hiring manager already left. Emily stared at the floor. Months of preparation, gone. She thanked the receptionist anyway and quietly turned toward the exit. Halfway across the lobby, she noticed an elderly janitor struggling to lift a heavy box that had fallen from a cleaning cart. People simply walked around him. No one stopped. Emily hesitated. She was already late. She had already failed. But she couldn't ignore him. She hurried over. "Sir, let me help." The old man smiled with surprise. "You're going to miss your meeting?" Emily laughed sadly. "I think I already did." Together they lifted the box back onto the cart. Several bottles had broken inside, leaving water across the polished floor. Emily grabbed paper towels and knelt beside the janitor without thinking twice. Employees in expensive shoes carefully stepped around them. One executive even frowned, as though they were in his way. Emily ignored them. 10 minutes later, the floor sparkled again. The old janitor wiped his forehead. "You didn't have to stay." "I know." "Then why?" Emily smiled. "Because someone should." The old man looked at her carefully. "You remind me of someone," she laughed. "I hope that's a good thing." "It is. Very good." As Emily prepared to leave, another voice echoed across the lobby. "Interesting." Everyone froze. The atmosphere changed instantly. Security guards straightened. Receptionists stood. Executives stopped talking. The elevator doors opened. Out stepped Adrian Kingsley. 6'3", dark-tailored, cold gray eyes, 38 years old, the youngest billionaire CEO in the country. His reputation terrified employees. Business magazines called him ruthless. Competitors called him merciless. The media called him the Ice King. Nobody smiled around Adrian Kingsley because Adrian Kingsley never smiled. He walked through the lobby without acknowledging anyone. Until his eyes landed on Emily. She quickly stood. "I'm sorry if we're blocking," he interrupted. "Who cleaned the floor?" Emily blinked. "I helped." His gaze shifted toward the elderly janitor. "And you?" The janitor simply nodded. Adrian looked back at Emily. "You don't work here." "No, you missed your interview." She looked surprised. "How did you know?" "I know everything that happens in my building." The lobby fell completely silent. Emily swallowed. "I'm sorry." "For what?" "I should leave." Adrian studied her soaked clothes. The worn backpack, the repaired shoes, the tiny tear on her sleeve she tried to hide. Then he asked something no one expected. Did anyone offer you another interview? Emily shook her head. They were busy. I see. Without another word, Adrian turned toward his assistant. Reschedule every remaining meeting. The assistant nearly dropped his tablet. Sir, today's board meeting. Move it. The investors, they can wait. Everyone stared. This man once fired a vice president for arriving 3 minutes late. Now he was postponing meetings worth hundreds of millions of dollars. For a college student, Emily looked confused. I don't understand. Adrian faced her. You helped someone when you thought no one important was watching. She answered quietly. I wasn't trying to impress anyone. I know. Then, that's exactly why I'm interested. He extended his hand. Come. She didn't move. Where? My office. Emily almost laughed. She honestly believed this had to be some strange misunderstanding. The CEO's office? Unless you'd rather go home. She looked around. Hundreds of employees were secretly watching. No one could believe what they were seeing. Neither could Emily. 5 minutes later, she entered the executive floor. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the entire city. Original artwork covered the walls. Everything smelled of leather and fresh coffee. Emily had never seen luxury like this before. Adrian walked ahead without speaking. Finally, he sat behind his enormous desk. She remained standing. He noticed. Sit. She carefully lowered herself into the chair. The silence felt intimidating. Finally, Adrian spoke. Why do you need this internship? Emily answered honestly. I need tuition. That's all? And rent. He nodded. No family support? My parents passed away. I'm sorry. It's okay. No. His voice softened unexpectedly. It's not. Emily looked surprised. That was the first human emotion she'd seen from him. He opened her application file. Top grades, volunteer work, perfect recommendations, multiple part-time jobs. He looked up. You've never taken a vacation, she laughed. I can't afford one. You've worked since you were 16. I had bills. Adrian closed the folder. You should have received an interview. Emily shrugged. Things happen. No. His voice became cold again. People fail. Systems shouldn't. He pressed the intercom. Bring me human resources. Within minutes, 3 nervous executives rushed inside. Adrian placed Emily's file on the table. Explain. No one spoke. Finally, one manager admitted quietly. There was an internal recommendation for another candidate, so Miss Carter was removed. The manager couldn't answer. Adrian's expression hardened. I asked a question. Yes. Emily suddenly understood. Someone wealthier, someone connected, had taken her place. She wasn't even angry anymore. She was simply tired. Adrian looked at her. Did you know? She smiled weakly. I guessed. And yet you still helped someone on your way out. Emily shrugged again. It wasn't the janitor's fault. The room fell silent. Adrian slowly stood. You wanted an internship. Yes. I'm offering something better. Everyone stared. You'll work directly under me. The HR director almost choked. Sir, no intern has ever. I didn't ask. Emily's eyes widened. I have no experience. I can teach experience. He paused. I can't teach character. For the first time in years, the ruthless CEO smiled. It was small, barely noticeable, but everyone in that office froze. Because Adrian Kingsley never smiled, except today, at one ordinary college girl who had no idea that a simple act of kindness had just changed both of their lives forever. Emily sat frozen in the leather chair, convinced she had misunderstood. Work? Directly under you? Adrian Kingsley gave a single nod. Yes. The Human Resources Director immediately spoke up. Mr. Kingsley, with respect, our executive internship program requires years of screening. We have candidates from Ivy League universities waiting. Adrian didn't even look at him. I wasn't asking for the policy. The room fell silent. I was changing it. Nobody dared argue again. Emily slowly stood. Mr. Kingsley, I'm grateful, but I think there's been a mistake. He raised an eyebrow. What mistake? I'm just a college student. I know. I've never worked in a corporate office. I know. I don't belong here. For the first time, Adrian looked directly into her eyes. You decided that before anyone else did. She didn't answer. He continued calmly. I've built companies for 15 years. I've hired thousands of people, and I've learned something. ABS skills can be taught. Integrity cannot. Emily lowered her eyes. She wasn't used to compliments, especially from someone like him. Adrian slid a contract across the desk. Read it. Her hands trembled as she opened it. Her eyes widened immediately. The salary alone was more money than she earned in an entire year working 2 part-time jobs. She looked up. This has to be wrong. It isn't. I can't accept this. Why? It's too much. A faint smile touched Adrian's lips. You'll earn every dollar. But you came here expecting an unpaid internship. She nodded. I'm offering you a career. Emily couldn't find the words. The HR executives looked as shocked as she was. One finally asked, Sir, should we prepare a temporary desk? Adrian answered without hesitation. The office beside mine. Every executive exchanged nervous glances. That office had remained empty for years. Only the CEO's most trusted advisors had ever worked there. Now, a 20-year-old college student was getting it. News traveled through Kingsley Group faster than wildfire. By lunchtime, everyone had heard the rumor. The CEO hired a girl personally. She has an office beside his. She isn't even a graduate. Who is she? Some assumed she was secretly related to him. Others believed she came from a wealthy family. No one guessed the truth. Emily spent her lunch break alone in the employee cafeteria. She quietly ate the sandwich she'd packed from home. Meanwhile, executives around her ordered expensive meals. She didn't mind. She had learned long ago not to compare her life to others. As she reached for her water bottle, someone sat across from her. It was the elderly janitor. You made quite an impression. Emily laughed nervously. I think I accidentally started office gossip. The old man chuckled. That building hasn't been this excited in years. She sighed. I don't know why he chose me. The janitor smiled knowingly. Maybe he saw what everyone else missed. Meanwhile, on the top floor, Adrian stood before the massive windows overlooking the city. His assistant, Daniel, entered carefully. You canceled the investor meeting. I know. You hired Miss Carter. I know. Daniel hesitated. I've worked with you for 10 years. Adrian remained silent. I've never seen you change your schedule for anyone. Finally, Adrian spoke. When I was 12, Daniel looked surprised. His boss almost never spoke about his childhood. My mother cleaned office buildings. Every night, executives ignored her. Sometimes they stepped over the bucket she carried. He paused. One winter evening, a young college student stayed after everyone left. She helped my mother clean. She refused payment. She simply said, everyone deserves kindness. Daniel listened quietly. I never forgot that. Adrian looked toward the city lights. This morning, I heard almost the same words. Emily's first afternoon was overwhelming. Stacks of reports covered her new desk. Financial charts, international contracts, meeting schedules. She stared at everything in disbelief. A woman in her 40s entered the office. I'm Grace, the CEO's executive secretary. Emily stood politely. It's nice to meet you. Grace smiled warmly. I've worked here for 22 years. I've seen hundreds of assistants. But you're the first one Mr. Kingsley hired himself. Emily rubbed the back of her neck awkwardly. I still don't understand why. Grace laughed softly. Neither does anyone else. Then she leaned closer. But I do know one thing. Emily waited. He never makes emotional decisions. At 6 o'clock, most employees packed their bags. Emily was still organizing files. She looked at the clock. Her evening shift at the coffee shop started in 45 minutes. She quietly grabbed her backpack. Just as she reached the elevator, Adrian stepped out. Leaving? Yes. For class? No. My second job. He frowned. You still work evenings? I need to. For what? She smiled apologetically. My apartment, books, food. He looked at her for several seconds. You have a full-time position here now. I know, But I already promised my manager I'd finish the week. You don't have to. I gave my word. Adrian said nothing. Finally, he stepped aside. I'll see you tomorrow. She smiled. Good night, Mr. Kingsley. Curious, Adrian watched from the lobby windows as Emily walked to the bus stop. She didn't order a taxi. She didn't call a ride. She stood in the cold evening breeze with dozens of strangers. 20 minutes later, a crowded city bus arrived. She climbed aboard. Daniel walked beside Adrian. You could have offered her a company car. I could have. Why didn't you? Adrian answered quietly. Because she would have refused. Daniel smiled. You're learning her already. That night, the coffee shop was unusually busy. Emily worked nonstop, cleaning tables, making drinks, smiling at customers. Around 8 o'clock, the bell above the door rang. She looked up. Her heart nearly stopped. Adrian Kingsley had just walked inside. Every customer recognized him immediately. People whispered, "That's the billionaire CEO. What's he doing here?" Emily hurried over. "Mr. Kingsley?" He glanced at the menu. "I'll have whatever you recommend." She blinked. "Our coffee isn't exactly executive quality. I didn't come for executive coffee." She froze. "You didn't?" I was nearby. She knew he wasn't. The company's headquarters were across town still. She prepared his drink. When she handed it over, he quietly noticed the worn tape holding together the handle of her coffee mug, the faded shoes she had changed back into after work, the exhaustion she tried so hard to hide behind her smile. He placed his company credit card on the counter. Emily shook her head. "We don't accept those." He almost smiled. "I know." He paid normally, then sat alone by the window for nearly an hour, working quietly on his laptop. He didn't interrupt her. He didn't demand attention. He simply stayed until her shift ended. When Emily finished cleaning, she stepped outside. To her surprise, Adrian was still there waiting beside his black luxury car. "You missed your driver?" He shook his head. "I dismissed him." She looked confused. "Why?" "So I could ask you something. What is it?" He looked unusually serious. "When was the last time someone took care of you?" Emily laughed softly. "I don't really need anyone to." "That's not what I asked." She searched her memory, then realized she couldn't remember, not since losing her parents. For the first time in years, the confident college girl felt tears threatening to appear. And Adrian noticed every single one. Emily quickly looked away before the tears could fall. She forced a small smile. "I'm okay." Adrian didn't challenge her answer. He simply opened the passenger door of his car. "Let me drive you home." Emily immediately shook her head. "I couldn't ask you to do that." "You didn't. I'll take the bus. It's almost 10 o'clock. I do it every night." "I know." She blinked. "You know? I asked Daniel to check your work schedule after you left the office." Emily frowned. "You investigated me?" "I verified your safety." She wasn't sure whether to be annoyed or touched. Finally, she sighed. "Mr. Kingsley, Adrian." She stared at him. "What?" "When we're not in the office, call me Adrian." "I don't think I can." "Why?" "You're my boss, and 20 years older than me." He smiled faintly. 18. She couldn't help laughing. "You counted?" "I prefer accurate numbers." For the first time that evening, the tension disappeared. Emily finally got into the car. The interior was quieter than any place she had ever been. Soft music played in the background. The leather seats felt more expensive than anything she had ever owned. Emily carefully kept her backpack on her lap. She didn't want to dirty anything. Adrian noticed. "You can relax." "I am relaxed." "No, you're trying not to breathe." She laughed nervously. "Your car probably costs more than my apartment building." "It does." She looked at him in disbelief. He continued driving as if he had commented on the weather. After several minutes, he asked, "What are you studying?" "Business administration." "Why business?" "I wanted to understand how companies grow." "And?" She smiled. "So I could build one someday." Adrian glanced at her. "What kind?" "I don't know yet, but I want to create jobs." He waited for her to continue. "When my parents died, My mother had worked for a small family business. They helped us more than anyone else. They didn't have to. They didn't have to, but they did. She looked out the window. I've always wanted to build a company where people matter. Adrian remained silent. Inside, however, something shifted. For years, he had met ambitious people who wanted wealth, power, or status. Emily wanted something entirely different. 30 minutes later, the luxury car stopped in front of an old apartment building. The neighborhood was quiet. Streetlights flickered. Paint peeled from the walls. Emily quickly unbuckled her seatbelt. "Thank you." She reached for the door. Adrian looked outside. "You live here?" She nodded. "It's not much." He watched as a section of the roof dripped rainwater into buckets placed by residents. Several lights in the hallway didn't work. "This building isn't safe. It's affordable." "They're different things." Emily smiled gently. "I've learned to make the best of what I have." She stepped out before he could say anything else. As she disappeared inside, Adrian remained parked for another minute. His jaw tightened. For reasons he couldn't explain, seeing where she lived bothered him far more than it should have. The next morning, Emily arrived at Kingsley Group 15 minutes early. Grace was already waiting. "Good morning," Emily smiled. "Morning." Grace handed her a neatly wrapped box. "The CEO asked me to give you this." Emily frowned. "What is it? Open it!" Inside was a brand new laptop, the latest model. Emily's eyes widened. "I can't accept this. It's company property. My old laptop still works." Grace smiled knowingly. Mr. Kingsley saw the screen held together with tape. Emily looked embarrassed. "I didn't think anyone noticed." "He notices everything." Emily carefully closed the box. She whispered, "Please thank him." Grace laughed. "You can do that yourself." At exactly 9 o'clock, Emily entered Adrian's office. He was already reading reports. Without looking up, he said, "Good morning." "Good morning, Adrian." He glanced up briefly. A tiny smile appeared. "You remembered." She placed the laptop on his desk. "Thank you. It's for work. It's still generous." He returned to reading. "You'll need it." Emily nodded. Then she noticed breakfast sitting untouched beside him. "You haven't eaten." "I'm busy." She looked at the clock. "It's 9. I know. You skipped breakfast again." He looked surprised. "How do you know I skipped it?" "The coffee is cold. The toast isn't touched. And you've already finished 2 cups of espresso." He stared at her for a second. "You observe a lot." "I worked in a coffee shop." She picked up the tray. "If you don't eat now, you'll have a headache before lunch." Adrian almost argued. Instead, he quietly took a bite. Grace walked past the office. She nearly dropped her notebook. In 22 years, she had never seen anyone convince Adrian Kingsley to stop working and eat. Over the following weeks, Emily adapted quickly. She learned meeting schedules, prepared reports, organized international calls, remembered details everyone else forgot. Employees slowly stopped questioning why she had been hired. Instead, they began asking for her help. She treated everyone the same: executives, receptionists, security guards, cleaning staff. She remembered birthdays. She thanked people by name. She brought extra coffee for employees working overtime. Little by little, the atmosphere inside Kingsley Group began changing. People smiled more. Departments communicated better. Even employee turnover dropped. One afternoon, Daniel quietly said to Adrian, "The office feels different." Adrian looked through the glass wall toward Emily's desk. She was helping an intern organize presentation materials, while laughing at something he had said. "It's because people work harder for someone who makes them feel seen." Daniel smiled. "She's changing your company." Adrian answered softly, "No, she's reminding us what it was supposed to be." A month later, Kingsley Group hosted its annual Charity Gala. The city's wealthiest business leaders attended. Grace handed Emily an elegant invitation. "The CEO wants you there." Emily immediately shook her head. "I don't belong at events like that. You represent the executive office now. I don't even own a formal dress." Grace hesitated. "I'll tell him." That evening, Adrian received the message. He looked at Daniel. She declined because she doesn't have a dress. Adrian leaned back in his chair. I expected that. What will you do? He thought quietly for a moment. Then he made a phone call. The next afternoon, a garment bag arrived at Emily's office. She opened it carefully. Inside was a breathtaking navy blue evening gown. Simple, elegant, not flashy. Exactly her style. Attached was a small handwritten note. This is not a gift. Consider it part of the event dress code. Adrian. Emily smiled despite herself. She knew exactly why he had worded it that way. Because he knew she would never accept expensive gifts. And for the first time, she wondered if the ruthless CEO understood her better than anyone else ever had. Emily held the elegant navy blue gown in her hands for several minutes. The fabric was soft enough to slip through her fingers like water. It was beautiful, Sybil, classy. Nothing like the glittering dresses she had seen celebrities wear on television. She smiled when she read Adrian's note again. This is not a gift. Consider it part of the event dress code, she whispered to herself. You really know how to win an argument. The night of the Kingsley Foundation Charity Gala arrived. Luxury cars lined the entrance of the five-star hotel. Camator flashes lit up the evening sky. Business leaders, politicians, celebrities, international investors, everyone wanted to be seen at Adrian Kingsley's annual charity event. Inside, violin music echoed through the grand ballroom. Crystal chandeliers reflected thousands of tiny lights across the polished marble floor. Emily stood outside the entrance, taking a deep breath. She had never attended anything like this. Grace walked over and smiled. You look beautiful. Emily blushed. I feel completely out of place. Grace squeezed her hand. Trust me. Tonight, everyone else will feel out of place. Emily laughed, not understanding what she meant. Across the ballroom, Adrian was surrounded by investors. He wore a perfectly tailored black tuxedo. Reporters constantly asked for photographs, yet every few seconds. His eyes drifted toward the entrance. Daniel noticed. Waiting for someone? Adrian answered calmly. I'm waiting for my executive assistant. Daniel smiled knowingly. Of course you are. The ballroom doors opened. Emily stepped inside. Conversation slowed, then stopped altogether. The navy blue gown fit perfectly. Her long dark hair rested naturally over one shoulder. She wore almost no jewelry, only the silver necklace that had belonged to her late mother. She wasn't the loudest person in the room. She simply looked genuine, and somehow, that made her impossible to ignore. Adrian looked up. For just a moment, the ruthless CEO completely forgot the conversation happening around him. One investor quietly chuckled. I've never seen Adrian Kingsley speechless. Emily slowly approached. You asked to see me? Adrian looked at her for a second longer than usual. You came, she smiled. You said it was part of the dress code. A faint smile appeared on his face. So I did. Daniel pretended to cough to hide his grin. Throughout the evening, Emily spoke politely with everyone. She listened more than she talked. She thanked waiters. She complimented the musicians. She even helped an elderly guest find her seat after noticing she was struggling to walk. Without realizing it, people began talking less about Adrian and more about the young woman standing beside him. Who is she? His girlfriend? His fiancée? His daughter? No, she's his assistant. Nobody believed that answer. Later that evening, the charity auction began. Rare paintings, luxury vacations, vintage watches. Millions of dollars were raised within minutes. Emily quietly watched from her table. She wasn't interested in expensive things. She was simply happy knowing the money would help hospitals and children's education. Then the host smiled toward the audience. Our final auction item tonight: a scholarship fund. The winning bidder will personally sponsor 100 underprivileged college students. The room applauded. Bidding started immediately. $5 million, $7 million, $10 million. The numbers climbed rapidly. Finally, only two bidders remained, one international billionaire, and Adrian Kingsley. 12 million, 15 million, 18 million. The audience gasped. The other billionaire smiled. 20 million. Silence filled the ballroom. Everyone looked toward Adrian. Without changing his expression, he calmly lifted his paddle. 30 million. The room exploded with applause. The other bidder laughed and lowered his paddle. Congratulations. The scholarship fund was his. Emily stared at Adrian. You didn't have to go that high, he answered quietly. I know. Then why? He looked toward the stage. Because education changed my life. His voice became softer, and someone once believed in me when nobody else did. Emily suddenly remembered the story he had told Daniel, about his mother, about the college student who had helped her. She smiled. Now she understood. As the gala continued, a famous socialite named Victoria Monroe walked directly toward Adrian. She was elegant, confident, and well known for pursuing wealthy businessmen. She smiled brightly. Adrian. It's been too long, he nodded politely. Victoria. Her eyes shifted toward Emily. And who is this? My executive assistant. Victoria's smile became noticeably thinner. So young. Emily extended her hand politely. It's nice to meet you. Victoria barely shook it. Instead, she turned back to Adrian. We should have dinner sometime. Before Adrian could answer, Victoria intentionally bumped her champagne glass. Red wine splashed across Emily's navy blue dress. The ballroom fell silent. Emily looked down in shock. The stain spread across the fabric. Victoria covered her mouth dramatically. Oh my goodness, I'm so clumsy. Her smile suggested otherwise. Emily forced herself to stay calm. It's okay. It was an accident. She picked up a napkin and quietly began cleaning the dress. Several guests whispered. No one moved. Except Adrian. He walked directly to Emily, removed his tuxedo jacket, and gently placed it over her shoulders, covering the stain. Then he looked at Victoria. His voice was calm, almost too calm. It wasn't an accident. Victoria's smile disappeared. I don't know what you mean. I've negotiated with world leaders. I can recognize intention. The room became uncomfortably quiet. Victoria laughed nervously. You're overreacting. Adrian took one step closer. My assistant came here to support a charity, not to become entertainment. If you cannot treat my employees with respect, you are no longer welcome at my events. Victoria's face turned pale. You'd remove me over her? Adrian answered without hesitation. I'd remove anyone. Security immediately approached. Victoria realized no one was coming to her defense. Humiliated, she quietly left the ballroom. Emily looked at Adrian. You didn't have to do that. Yes, I did. Later that night, the gala ended. Guests slowly departed. Emily stood on the hotel balcony overlooking the city lights. She sighed. I think I ruined your event. Adrian walked beside her. You improved it. She laughed. My dress says otherwise. He looked at the stain. It can be replaced. You can't. Emily looked at him, confused. He continued. Money replaces things. It doesn't replace good people. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The city sparkled below. A cool breeze moved gently across the balcony. Neither noticed the photographers standing across the street. One camera flashed, then another, and another. By the next morning, every major entertainment website would be asking the same question. Who was the mysterious young woman who had captured the heart and attention of the world's most ruthless CEO? Emily had no idea her life had changed overnight. The next morning, she left her apartment carrying a backpack, a cup of homemade coffee, and a notebook filled with college assignments. Everything felt normal until she reached the subway station. Two college students standing nearby were staring at their phones. One suddenly looked up. Wait, that's her, the girl from the Charity Gala. Emily frowned. She quickly pulled out her own phone. The screen exploded with notifications, news articles, social media posts, videos, photos. Every headline featured the same picture. Adrian standing beside her on the hotel balcony, His tuxedo jacket draped gently over her shoulders. The headlines were even worse. Has billionaire CEO Adrian Kingsley finally fallen in love? Mystery college girl captures the Ice King's heart. Who is the woman standing beside the world's most eligible CEO? Emily's face turned pale. Oh no. By the time she reached Kingsley Group, reporters were waiting outside the building. Cameras flashed the moment they saw her. Miss Carter, are you dating Adrian Kingsley? Did he buy your dress? How long have you known each other? Is there an engagement? Emily froze. She had never faced reporters before. Suddenly, several security guards stepped forward. Please make way. They quickly escorted her inside. Emily let out a long breath. Grace was waiting in the lobby. Welcome to your new normal. Emily looked horrified. I didn't do anything. Grace smiled sympathetically. Exactly. On the top floor, Adrian was already reading the morning headlines. Daniel placed another newspaper on his desk. They're everywhere. I can see that. The board is worried. About what? They think public speculation might affect investors. Adrian calmly closed the newspaper. Have investors withdrawn? No. Have our stock prices fallen? Daniel checked his tablet. They've actually increased. Then I don't see the problem. Emily knocked softly on his office door. You wanted to see me? He looked up. You haven't eaten breakfast. She blinked. What? You skipped breakfast. How do you know? You've been holding the same coffee cup for 30 minutes. She looked down. It was true. She hadn't taken a single sip. Adrian stood. Come with me. Where? Breakfast. She hesitated. People are already talking. They'll continue talking whether we eat or not. Emily couldn't argue with that. Instead of an expensive restaurant, Adrian took her to a small family-owned diner tucked away on a quiet street. Emily looked surprised. I thought billionaires only ate in luxury places. He almost smiled. I grew up eating here. You did? The owner knew my mother. An elderly woman behind the counter suddenly smiled. Adrian. He nodded respectfully. Good morning, Mrs. Harper. She noticed Emily. So this is the young lady everyone keeps talking about. Emily nearly choked on her water. Adrian sighed. It seems everyone has read the news. Mrs. Harper laughed. Sit down. I'll make breakfast. The tiny diner felt warm and peaceful, nothing like the glamorous hotels Adrian usually attended. Emily looked around. You come here often? Whenever I need to think. She smiled. I like it. So do I. Breakfast arrived. Pancakes, eggs, fresh fruit. Emily stared at the large plate. I can't eat all this. Mrs. Harper smiled. You look like you haven't had a proper breakfast in years. Emily laughed. Maybe not. As they ate, Adrian noticed something. Emily quietly wrapped half her sandwich in a napkin. He raised an eyebrow. Saving it? She looked embarrassed. My roommate has an exam today. She usually skips breakfast, so I thought I'd bring her something. Adrian stared at her for a long moment, even when someone else was taking care of her. She was thinking about another person. Back at the office, the board of directors had arrived unexpectedly. 8 senior executives sat around the conference table. None of them looked pleased. As Adrian entered, one director spoke immediately. The media attention surrounding Miss Carter is becoming a distraction. Another added, investors are asking questions. A third leaned forward. Perhaps it would be better if she were transferred. The room became quiet. Adrian slowly placed his folder on the table. Then he looked at each director one by one. Miss Carter increased employee satisfaction, reduced staff turnover, improved executive scheduling, and helped organize our largest charity event. He paused. Tell me, which part of that makes her the problem? No one answered. One older director finally spoke. The issue isn't her performance. It's perception. Adrian's voice became colder. So you're suggesting I punish someone for gossip? Silence, he continued. I built this company on merit. If any employee is treated unfairly because of rumors, I will consider that a failure of leadership. The meeting ended. No one mentioned Emily again. Later that afternoon, Emily was organizing contracts when she heard raised voices near the reception area. A young delivery driver looked nervous. "I'm sorry. I accidentally scratched one of the company cars." The poor man looked terrified. "It's my first week. I'll pay for it," an angry manager shouted. "With what? That repair costs more than your salary." The driver's hands trembled. Emily quietly walked over. "It's okay," the manager frowned. "This doesn't concern you." She knelt beside the frightened driver. "Are you hurt?" He shook his head. "No." "Then that's the important part." She smiled. "Cars can be repaired. People can't." Just then, a familiar voice came from behind. "I agree." Everyone turned. Adrian had witnessed everything. He looked at the damaged luxury vehicle, then at the terrified young driver. "Were you speeding?" "No, sir." "Using your phone?" "No." "What happened?" "The brakes slipped because of the rain." Adrian nodded. "Accidents happen." The manager looked shocked. "But sir, the car. I have insurance." Then Adrian turned to the driver. "Take the rest of the day off. Get checked by a doctor." The young man stared in disbelief. I'm not fired?" Adrian answered simply. "No." The driver fought back tears. "Thank you." After he left, Adrian looked toward Emily. "You would have defended him even if I hadn't come." She nodded. He already felt terrible. There was no reason to make him feel worse. Adrian smiled. "That's exactly why I knew you belonged here." Emily smiled back. Neither of them noticed. Someone across the street was watching through the window. A middle-aged woman slowly lowered a photograph she had been carrying. The picture showed a little girl, barely 5 years old, standing beside her late parents. The woman whispered to herself, "So, you're alive after all." She stepped into a waiting car. "Follow her." As the black sedan pulled away, neither Emily nor Adrian had any idea that someone connected to Emily's forgotten past had just reappeared and was about to change everything. For the next 3 days, Emily couldn't shake the strange feeling that someone was watching her. Every morning, the same black sedan appeared across the street from her apartment. Every evening, it seemed to be parked somewhere near the coffee shop. She told herself it was just a coincidence. Until Friday afternoon. She left Kingsley Group carrying a stack of documents for Adrian's afternoon meeting. As she stepped outside, the black sedan slowly pulled to the curb. A woman in her late 50s stepped out. She wore a simple cream-colored coat and held a worn photograph tightly in her hands. Her eyes immediately filled with tears. "Emily." Emily stopped walking. "I'm sorry. Do I know you?" The woman smiled sadly. "No, but I've known you since the day you were born." Emily felt her heart skip. "What?" Before the woman could continue, Adrian's security team quietly moved closer. The CEO himself had just exited the building. He noticed the tension immediately. "Emily." She turned toward him. I don't know this woman." The woman quickly raised both hands. "I'm not here to hurt her. My name is Margaret Hayes. I was your mother's closest friend." Emily's world seemed to stop. "My mother's friend?" Margaret nodded with tears in her eyes. "When your parents died, I was overseas doing medical volunteer work. By the time I returned, you had already disappeared into the foster care system. I searched for you for years." Emily couldn't speak. Margaret slowly handed her the old photograph. It showed Emily as a little girl sitting on her father's shoulders while her mother laughed beside them. On the back, written in faded ink, were the words, "For our little sunshine, Emily. Love always. Mom and Dad." Emily's hands trembled. She had never seen that picture before. Tears rolled silently down her cheeks. Margaret whispered, "I promised your mother that if anything ever happened to them, I would find you. I just found you too late." Without thinking, Emily stepped forward and hugged her. Both women cried quietly on the sidewalk, while people around them pretended not to stare. Adrian remained a respectful distance away. He understood this moment wasn't about him. Over the next few weeks, Margaret slowly became part of Emily's life. She brought photo albums, old birthday videos, Letters Emily's parents had written before the accident. For the first time since childhood, Emily felt connected to her family again. One evening, she invited Adrian to Margaret's small home for dinner. He almost declined. Then Emily smiled. "It would mean a lot to me." He accepted. The dinner was simple: homemade soup, fresh bread, apple pie, nothing extravagant. Margaret watched the two of them quietly. Emily laughed while telling stories from college. Adrian listened more than he spoke, but every time Emily smiled, he smiled too. Finally, Margaret cleared her throat. "May I ask you something, Adrian?" "Of course." "When was the last time you laughed this much?" Adrian looked at Emily before answering. "I honestly don't remember." Emily lowered her head, suddenly shy. Months passed. Emily continued college while working at Kingsley Group. She graduated at the top of her class. When her name was called at graduation, Margaret stood proudly in the audience. Grace and Daniel cheered louder than anyone. To Emily's complete surprise, Adrian was sitting in the very last row, trying not to attract attention. After the ceremony, she walked over to him. "You came. I said I would if my schedule allowed." She laughed. "You canceled 2 international meetings. They were rescheduled." "Dodd, you didn't have to." He looked at her with quiet honesty. "I've discovered there are moments more important than meetings." Emily's eyes filled with happy tears. A year later, Kingsley Group launched a nationwide scholarship program. It would provide full college tuition, housing assistance, and mentorship for students who had overcome hardship. At the opening ceremony, reporters asked Adrian why he had created the program. He looked toward the audience. Emily stood beside Margaret, Grace, and Daniel. Then he answered, "Years ago, I believed success was measured by profit." He paused. "Someone reminded me that success is measured by the lives you change." He didn't mention Emily by name. He didn't need to. She already knew. After the ceremony ended, the crowd slowly disappeared. Emily and Adrian stood alone on the rooftop terrace of the company headquarters, watching the sunset paint the skyline in shades of gold and orange. "So," Emily said softly, "you've spoiled me quite a lot." He smiled. "Have I? You gave me a chance, a career, a family. You believed in me." Adrian shook his head. "No, you earned every one of those things." A gentle silence settled between them. Finally, he reached into the inside pocket of his jacket. Emily's heart raced. He wasn't holding a ring. Instead, he handed her a thin folder. She opened it. Inside were the official incorporation papers for a new charitable foundation. Across the top, it read, "The Carter Future Foundation." She looked up in confusion. "What's this?" "You once told me your dream was to build a company that helped people." He smiled warmly. "I thought we'd start with a foundation." Emily covered her mouth as tears streamed down her face. "I don't know what to say." "Then don't." She laughed through her tears. For the first time, Adrian reached out and gently took her hand. No cameras, no reporters, no audience. Just two people whose lives had quietly changed each other forever. Above them, the evening sky stretched endlessly across the city. And together, they stood looking toward a future neither of them had ever imagined possible. Like, subscribe, and support my channel. I really need your support. If you enjoy my video, please share it and leave your feedback in the comments.